The war was over. After 8 months of human involvement, the void-born threat had been eliminated so thoroughly that xenobiologists were debating whether the species had ever existed at all. No breeding worlds, no fleets, no scattered survivors hiding in distant systems. Nothing remained except classified reports and the memories of those who had witnessed their destruction. The victory celebration on SciFiPrime was the largest gathering in Federation history. Representatives from 47 species filled the Great Assembly Hall, their different forms and colors creating a rainbow of galactic diversity. At the center of it all sat Commander Hyun-sik, wearing the same plain uniform he had worn to the first meeting with Ambassador Thexelon. "Citizens of the Federation," announced Chancellor Volthara, "today we honor humanity for saving our civilization from extinction." The applause was thunderous, but Hyun-sik noticed that many of the alien officials clapped with less enthusiasm than before. Word had spread about human methods. The joy of survival was now mixed with fear of their saviors. Chancellor Volthara continued her speech, praising human courage and sacrifice. She spoke of friendship between species and the bright future ahead, but her words felt hollow to many in the audience who now knew the truth about how this victory had been won. After the ceremony, Hyun-sik found himself alone with several high-ranking Federation officials. The atmosphere was tense despite the celebration happening around them. "Commander," said Admiral Zethmos, "the Federation owes humanity an enormous debt." "The debt was paid when you gave us membership in territory," Hyun-sik replied. "We consider the matter closed." "About that," Thexelon interjected, "there have been some concerns raised in the High Command about human military capabilities." "What kind of concerns?" General Korthon leaned forward. "The kind where some species are wondering if they should be worried about their new neighbors." Hyun-sik showed no emotion. "Are they planning to attack Earth?" "Of course not. Then they have nothing to worry about." The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Everyone in the room understood the implication. Humans weren't a threat to peaceful species, but the definition of peaceful would be determined by humans themselves. "There is another matter," Thexelon said carefully. "Some member species have requested that human military methods be shared with Federation forces. For future threats." "No. But surely, no," Hyun-sik repeated. "Our methods are classified Earth technology. They remain under human control." Admiral Zethmos tried a different approach. "Perhaps we could establish joint training programs? Cultural exchange between military units?" "Why?" "To build better cooperation between our forces. Our cooperation was perfect during the war. Your forces stayed out of our way and we eliminated the threat. What needs to improve?" The alien officials exchanged glances. They were trying to find a polite way to ask for oversight of human operations, but Hyun-sik wasn't making it easy. "Commander," General Korthon said bluntly, "some species are concerned that humanity might use these methods against Federation members in the future. If Federation members behave like the Voidborn, they should be concerned." "What does that mean?" "It means that Earth has no interest in harming peaceful species. But we have demonstrated what happens to species that threaten galactic civilization." The message was clear. Behave and humans would be valuable allies. Become a threat, and humans would solve that problem just as efficiently as they had solved the Voidborn problem. Back on Earth, Colonel Jaemin stood in a secure briefing room presenting his final report to the military leadership. The walls displayed star charts showing the current positions of all human assets throughout Federation space. "Operation Ghost Dance is complete," he announced. "The Voidborn have been eliminated as a galactic threat. Human casualties 23 wounded, 0 killed. Enemy casualties estimated 12 million. "Excellent work, Colonel," said General Minjun. "What's the status of intelligence gathering on Federation forces? Complete profiles on all member species' military capabilities, political structures, and potential weaknesses. We now have detailed plans for neutralizing any Federation threat within 6 months. And their awareness of our capabilities? Limited but growing. Federation leadership knows we use unconventional methods, but they don't understand the full scope of our operations. They're afraid but not yet panicked." General Minjun nodded approvingly. "Perfect. Fear keeps them cooperative, but panic would make them dangerous. What about future threats?" Jaemin touched a control, and the star charts changed to show intelligence reports from beyond Federation space. Long-range reconnaissance has identified 3 potential threats. The Hegemony Collective shows signs of expansionist policies. The trade union has been developing military technologies that could challenge Federation space. And there are unconfirmed reports of another extragalactic species probe. Timeline? The collective could become a problem within 2 years. The trade union within 5 years. The extragalactic probe is too far away to assess accurately. Begin preliminary intelligence operations on all 3 targets. I want complete threat assessments and neutralization plans ready before any of them become immediate problems. Jaemin smiled. Already in progress, sir. Major So Young's teams are establishing deep cover positions in collective space. Lieutenant Dongwu's unit is infiltrating trade union facilities, and we're tracking the extragalactic probe with long-range stealth platforms. Meanwhile, on a Federation border world, the local Altarian governor was receiving disturbing intelligence reports from his security forces. Sir, we've detected unusual activity in the outer system, his security chief reported. Sensor anomalies that might indicate cloaked vessels. Federation ships? Unknown, sir. The signature profiles don't match any known Federation technology. The governor felt a chill. Since the end of the Voidborn War, several species had reported strange incidents. Ships disappearing for brief periods, then returning with no memory of what happened. Computer systems suffering temporary failures that left no trace. Government officials reporting strange dreams about being questioned by unknown individuals. The official reports always concluded that these were coincidences or equipment failures. But privately, many Federation leaders suspected that human intelligence operations were far more extensive than anyone realized. Double the security patrols, the governor ordered, and send a priority message to Federation Command. Tell them the Altarian Republic requests immediate clarification of human military activities in our territory. The reply came back within hours. Human activities are classified. No further information available. It was the same response every species received when they asked about human operations. Earth was technically a Federation member, but it operated according to its own rules, and those rules were apparently beyond Federation oversight. 3 months after the victory celebration, Ambassador Thexalon sat alone in his office, reading intelligence reports that made his blood cold. The pattern was becoming clear to anyone who looked carefully at the data. Human ships had been detected near every potential threat to galactic stability. Species that might develop dangerous technologies found their research programs mysteriously sabotaged. Political movements that preached aggression against other species saw their leaders suffer from accidents or sudden illnesses. Potential military threats were neutralized before they could fully develop. The galaxy was becoming more peaceful, but not through diplomacy or cooperation. It was becoming peaceful because anything that threatened peace simply stopped existing. Thexlon opened a secure communication channel to the other Federation founders. Their worried faces appeared on his screen. "We need to discuss the human situation," he said without preamble. "What situation?" asked Chancellor Volthera, though her expression suggested she already knew. "The situation where we asked for soldiers and received exterminators instead." The conversation that followed was careful and coded, but the message was clear. The Federation had traded the Voidborn threat for human protection, but protection from humans came with strings attached. "Behave according to human standards and flourish under their invisible guardianship. Step out of line and disappear quietly in the night. What are our options?" asked Admiral Zethmos. "Accept the new reality or risk becoming the next problem they solve," Thexlon replied. "And if we accept, then the galaxy remains peaceful, prosperous, and safe, under human supervision. They're turning the Federation into their protectorate." "No," Thexlon corrected. "They turned us into their protectorate the moment we asked for their help. We just didn't realize it at the time." Back on Earth, Commander Hyun-Sik stood at his office window looking up at the stars. His reflection in the glass showed a man who seemed satisfied with his work. Colonel Jae-min entered and stood at attention. "Sir, the Federation High Command has submitted a formal request for information about human military activities in their territory." Response? "Standard classified materials protocol. No information disclosed." "Good. Any indication they're planning to take action against our operations?" "No, sir. Intelligence suggests they're too afraid to directly confront us. They understand the consequences." Hyun-Sik nodded. Fear was a useful tool for maintaining peace, but it had to be carefully managed. The Federation High Command was getting suspicious. 7 major void-born strongholds had fallen in 4 months, but their own military reports showed no record of the massive battles that should have been necessary. Something was happening that they didn't understand. Ambassador Thexelon stood before the War Council, his forearms spread in a gesture of frustration. We need answers. The humans claim credit for these victories, but we never see their armies fight. Admiral Zethmos agreed. My intelligence reports show the same pattern everywhere. Void-born forces collapse from internal problems, rebellions, and system failures. Then human ships arrive to clean up abandoned positions. Perhaps they use superior technology, suggested General Markoth of the Altarians. Energy weapons we cannot detect, stealth systems beyond our understanding. Or perhaps they are cowards who let our forces do the real fighting while they take credit, growled General Corthan. Thexelon raised one hand for silence. There is only one way to know for certain. We must observe human operations directly. The next day, Thexelon's ship arrived at Proxima 7, where Federation forces were preparing to assault a major void-born fortress. Intelligence reported that 50,000 enemy soldiers occupied the facility, protected by energy shields and automated defense systems. It would require at least 200,000 Federation troops to take the position. Colonel Jamin met the alien delegation at the orbital station. He wore the same plain uniform as all human officers, with no decorations or signs of rank except for small metal insignia. Ambassador Thexelon, Jamin said politely, we weren't expecting observers. The High Command requires a full report on human military capabilities, Thexelon replied. We have fought beside you for months, but we have never seen your methods. Jamin's expression didn't change. Our methods are classified, not anymore. By order of the War Council, all member species must share tactical information. This includes humanity. For a moment, the human officer was quiet. Then he nodded slowly. Very well. But I warn you, Ambassador, what you see may not match your expectations about civilized warfare. We have seen many forms of combat, Colonel. We are prepared. I doubt that. 6 hours later, Thexelon stood in the observation center watching tactical displays that showed the void-born fortress. The structure was massive, carved deep into a mountain and protected by multiple layers of defenses. 50,000 enemy soldiers would fight to the death to hold it. Where are your assault forces? Thexelon asked. Already deployed, Jamin replied. The alien looked at the displays again. He saw no human ships, no army formations, no preparation for attack. I see nothing. That's the point. On the surface of Proxima 7, Sergeant Kyung-Soo and his 7-person team were already inside the void-born fortress. They had infiltrated through the water supply tunnels, moving through maintenance shafts and ventilation systems that the enemy never thought to. Guard, a status report, he whispered into his communicator. Reactor. Control room secured, reported Corporal Haywan. I've introduced a virus into their power management system. In 3 hours, the main reactor will overload and destroy the facility. Command Center. Neural network hub identified, replied Private Sungmin. I've placed charges on the primary coordination nodes. When they detonate, the entire enemy force will lose communication with each other. Water supply. Contaminated with Agent 7, said Specialist Yejin. Any void-born who drinks the water will be dead within 6 hours. Defense systems? Hacked and turned, reported Corporal Dong-hyun. In 2 hours, all automated weapons will target void-born soldiers instead of intruders. Kyung-Soo checked his chronometer. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Extraction point Alpha in 90 minutes. Mission completion in 3 hours. In the observation center, Thexelon watched displays that showed normal fortress activity. When does the attack begin? It began 6 hours ago, Jamin replied. I see no evidence of assault. You're not looking at the right things. As if responding to his words, the tactical displays began showing problems inside the void-born fortress. Communication systems started failing in random patterns. Power levels dropped in critical areas. Individual enemy soldiers began reporting to medical centers with symptoms of poisoning. What is happening? Thexelon demanded. Phase 1 completion, Jamin said calmly. The alien watched in growing horror as the fortress began to tear itself apart from within. Automated defense turrets turned on their own forces. Security doors sealed randomly, trapping void-born soldiers in their own corridors. Emergency systems activated for no apparent reason, flooding sections of the base with toxic gases. This is impossible. How are you doing this? We're not fighting their army, Ambassador. We're removing their ability to function as an army. The displays showed voidborn forces in complete chaos. Without communication, they couldn't coordinate responses. Without reliable power, their weapons and equipment failed at critical moments. Without trust in their own systems, they couldn't mount any effective defense. Then the reactor overloaded. The explosion was visible from orbit. A brilliant flash that vaporized the mountain and everything inside it. 50,000 voidborn soldiers died instantly, along with all their equipment, weapons, and strategic intelligence. The observation center fell silent. Thexlon stared at the smoking crater where the fortress had been. His large black eyes were wide with shock. 8 soldiers, he whispered. I beg your pardon? You destroyed a fortress containing 50,000 enemy soldiers with 8 people. 7, actually. Sergeant Kyung-soo coordinates but doesn't participate in direct action. Thexlon turned to face the human colonel. This isn't warfare. This is efficient? It's extermination, Jamin nodded. Yes. The Voidborn are a threat to galactic civilization, so we're exterminating them. Is there a problem with this approach? The alien's forearms trembled. You don't fight armies. You assassinate them. Armies are just collections of individual soldiers with specific weaknesses and dependencies. Remove the right elements and the army ceases to exist. But what about honor? What about rules of engagement? What about giving the enemy a chance to fight back? For the first time, Jamin's expression showed emotion. It was confusion, as if the alien had asked why water was wet. Ambassador, the Voidborn are trying to exterminate every intelligent species in the galaxy. They don't negotiate, they don't surrender, and they don't show mercy. Why should we give them opportunities to kill more civilians? Because that's what separates civilized species from monsters. No, Jamin replied quietly. What separates civilized species from monsters is that civilized species protect their children. Everything else is just preference. Thexlon felt a chill run through his body. He was beginning to understand why human casualties in this war were so impossibly low. They weren't fighting the same kind of war everyone else was fighting. How many Voidborn have you killed using these methods? Approximately 4 million so far. And Federation casualties among human forces? 17 wounded, no deaths. The alien sat down heavily in the nearest chair. 4 million enemies killed for 17 wounded. It was the most lopsided military achievement in galactic history, and it had been accomplished through methods that no other species would even consider. What are you? He asked finally. Jamin looked out at the stars, considering the question. We're the species you called when you needed someone to solve your Voidborn problem. Did you want us to solve it, or did you want us to solve it in a way that made you feel comfortable? Both. You can't have both, Ambassador. You can have a dead enemy, or you can have a war that follows your rules of honor. Choose one. Thexlon closed his large eyes. The Federation had made their choice months ago when they asked for human help. They just hadn't understood what they were choosing. What happens when the Voidborn are extinct? Then the galaxy will be safe from them. And what happens to us? What happens to species who know your methods? Jamin looked at the alien with something that might have been sympathy. That depends entirely on whether you decide to become a problem that needs solving. The truth hung in the air between them like a weapon. The Federation had asked humanity to save them from extinction. But in doing so, they had revealed their own weaknesses to a species that solved problems by eliminating them completely. Thexlon realized that the galaxy had traded one existential threat for another. The question now was whether their new protectors would remain protectors, or become something much worse. Looking at Colonel Jamin's calm, professional expression, the alien suspected he already knew the answer. The Voidborn learned fast. After losing 3 more worlds to mysterious system failures, they changed their tactics. They hardened their communication networks, isolated their command structures, and created backup systems for everything. They thought this would stop the invisible attacks. They were wrong. Major So-Young stood on the observation deck of her stealth ship, watching a Voidborn-occupied world turn slowly beneath her. The planet looked normal from space, but intelligence reports showed it was a major breeding center for enemy forces. Millions of new Voidborn warriors were being created in the vast underground hatcheries. Status report, she asked her team. Phase 1 complete, replied Sergeant Kyung-soo. The biological agents were introduced into the water supply 6 weeks ago. Local population is now carrying modified genetic markers. Phase 2. Infrastructure sabotage is ongoing, reported Private Mikyung. Power grids will begin failing in random patterns starting tomorrow. The failures will look like normal system wear. Phase 3. Propaganda networks are active, said Corporal Jinwoo. The conquered species on this world are receiving our broadcasts. Resistance cells are forming. So Young nodded with satisfaction. This was how humans really fought wars. Not with grand battles or heroic charges, but with patience, planning, and the understanding that every enemy had weaknesses that could be exploited. Begin Phase 4, she ordered. 3 months earlier, So Young's team had infiltrated this world disguised as refugees from another void-born attack. The enemy never suspected that the scared, helpless survivors they allowed into their labor camps were actually trained psychological warfare specialists. The biological agents they introduced weren't weapons in any traditional sense. Instead, they were genetic modifiers that made the conquered species more aggressive and resistant to void-born control methods. The changes were so subtle that medical scans couldn't detect them, but they were turning the planet's slave population into potential rebels. The infrastructure sabotage was equally subtle. So Young's people had spent weeks studying the power systems, transportation networks, and manufacturing facilities. Then they introduced tiny flaws that would cause failures months later. When the breakdowns began, they would look like natural wear and tear, not sabotage. But the psychological warfare was her specialty. Every night, hidden transmitters broadcast messages to the conquered populations. The messages weren't calls to immediate rebellion. Instead, they planted seeds of doubt, hope, and anger that would grow slowly over time. On the planet's surface, the effects were already beginning to show. The Ryloth, a peaceful species that had been enslaved for 2 years, were starting to ask dangerous questions. Why did their children keep disappearing into the breeding centers? Why did the Voidborn need so many workers if their technology was so advanced? Why should they accept their fate when other worlds were fighting back? Foreman Catan of the Eastern Mining Complex noticed the change first. His Ryloth workers were slower to respond to orders, more likely to make mistakes that damaged equipment, and increasingly prone to work accidents that hurt Voidborn overseers. The local species is becoming less cooperative, he reported to his superiors. Productivity is down 12% over the last month. Increased discipline protocols, came the reply. Use pain stimulation if necessary. But when the overseers tried to use their control devices, they found that many no longer worked effectively. The genetic modifications So Young's team had introduced made the Ryloth less susceptible to the Voidborn's biological control methods. What started as minor resistance quickly spread. Work slowdowns became sabotage. Sabotage became attacks on guards. Attacks on guards became organized rebellion. The Voidborn response was predictable. They sent in military units to crush the uprising. But as soon as their forces moved to suppress one rebellion, 3 more started elsewhere on the planet. Meanwhile, Private Teho was working on a different kind of problem. He had spent weeks studying captured Voidborn biological samples, learning how their adaptive immune systems worked. The enemy's ability to resist diseases and toxins made them nearly impossible to kill with conventional biological weapons. But Teho wasn't using conventional methods. The key is their adaptation mechanism, he explained to So Young during a secure transmission. They develop immunity to anything that attacks them directly. But what if we make their immune system attack their own bodies? Explain. I've created a genetic trigger that looks like beneficial bacteria to their systems. Their bodies welcome it, integrate it into their biological processes. But once it's established, it starts sending false signals that make their immune system identify their own organs as foreign invaders. How long until symptoms appear? 6 to 8 weeks for the first cases. But it spreads through their entire population within 3 months. And the best part is, it looks like a natural autoimmune disorder. They'll never know it was engineered. So Young smiled grimly. Deploy it. The biological weapon was introduced through the planet's water supply, just like the genetic modifiers for the conquered species. But this one was specifically designed to target Voidborn physiology. It spread silently through their population, dormant and undetectable. By the time the first Voidborn started showing symptoms, the weapon was already present in every member of their species on the planet. Their medical systems identified it as a new disease and tried to develop treatments, but the weapon adapted to every cure they created. Within 2 months, The void-born military presence on the planet was reduced by 60%, not from battles or attacks, but from a mysterious illness that their best scientists couldn't understand or cure. The remaining void-born forces found themselves fighting on 3 fronts: against the increasingly violent rebellion of their slave populations, against a disease that was killing their own people, and against the mysterious infrastructure failures that kept disabling their equipment at critical moments. From space, Federation observers watched in amazement as another void-born stronghold collapsed from internal chaos. Their intelligence reports showed no sign of major Federation attacks on the planet, no massive battles, no heroic invasions. How is this happening? Admiral Zethmos asked his analysts. This is the 4th world where the void-born have simply lost control for no apparent reason. Our agents report widespread rebellion among the conquered populations, his intelligence chief replied. The void-born are also suffering from some kind of plague that affects only their species. Curious. What about the humans? Are they involved? Unknown, sir. We detected a human ship in the system 3 months ago, but it left after only a few days. No signs of human military activity. Admiral Zethmos studied the reports with growing suspicion. 4 worlds, 4 mysterious void-born defeats and humans nearby each time. Either this was an incredible coincidence or the humans were fighting a war that the Federation couldn't even see. Back on her ship, Major So Young received new orders from Earth. Intelligence had identified 2 more void-born breeding worlds and a major fleet assembly point. All 3 targets needed to be neutralized before the enemy could reinforce their remaining strongholds. Estimated timeline for each target? She asked her team. 4 months for the breeding worlds if we use the standard biological warfare approach, Sergeant Kyung-soo replied. 6 months for the fleet assembly point. That one's going to be harder because it's heavily defended. Too long. The Federation is starting to ask questions about our methods. We need to accelerate the timeline. We could use more direct action, suggested Private Mi Kyung. Assassination teams, sabotage squads, targeted strikes. So Young considered this. Direct action meant higher risks of exposure, but it would be faster. And speed was becoming important. Do it. Coordinate with Colonel Jamin's ghost units. Tell them we need the fleet assembly point neutralized within 4 weeks. What about operational security? If we move too fast, the Federation might figure out what we're doing. So Young looked out at the stars, thinking about the bigger picture. The Voidborn were just the first problem humanity had decided to solve in the galaxy. There would be others. And each solution would be easier if potential enemies never understood how humans actually fought their wars. The Federation doesn't need to understand our methods, she said finally. They just need to accept the results. Keep the operations invisible. Let them think their conventional forces are winning these battles. And if they discover the truth, then we'll handle that problem the same way we're handling the Voidborn. One enemy at a time until there are no enemies left. Her team exchanged glances. They all understood what that meant. The galaxy thought humans were helping them fight a war. In reality, humanity was establishing itself as the apex predator in a galaxy full of potential threats. The Voidborn were just the beginning. The mining world of Kepler 442b was dying. From orbit, the planet looked like it had a disease. Black veins of Voidborn bioships spread across its surface like infected wounds. The defenders knew they had maybe 6 hours before complete defeat. General Korthon of the Zinthari watched his shock troops fall back to their final positions. His warriors were the finest in the galaxy, bred for war and trained from birth to feel no fear. But they were losing badly. Every weapon they fired taught the Voidborn how to defend against it. Every tactic they used was turned against them within hours. "Status report," he growled into his communicator. "Sector 7 has fallen," came the reply. "Sector 4 is under heavy assault. The hegemony battle mechs are down to 30% strength." Korthon looked at the tactical display. Red enemy markers covered most of the planet. Soon there would be nothing left to defend. Another world would die and the Federation would retreat again. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel," his communications officer reported. Humans? Korthon had heard rumors that Earth had finally sent military support. "Put them through." The hologram showed a woman in a plain gray uniform. No medals, no rank insignia, nothing to indicate her importance. She looked young for a military commander. "General Korthon, I am Captain Young Ho. We are here to assist." "About time," the alien general replied. "How many troops did you bring?" "We need immediate reinforcement at sectors 4 and 7. We didn't bring troops, General. We brought specialists. Corthan's 4 eyes narrowed.
What kind of specialists?
The kind that solve problems quietly. We'll handle the Voidborn. Just keep your forces in defensive positions and stay out of our way. Stay out of your way? How many ships do you have? 1. The Zenthari general stared at the human. Either this was some kind of joke or the humans were completely insane. You have 1 ship against a Voidborn fleet? We won't be fighting their fleet, General. Trust me, this will work differently than you expect. The transmission ended, leaving Corthan confused and angry. 1 ship? What could 1 human ship do that his entire battle group could not? 3,000 miles away, Lieutenant Dongwu and his 5-person team prepared for insertion. They sat in complete darkness inside their stealth transport, checking equipment that looked nothing like standard military gear. No heavy armor, no energy weapons, no battle computers. Instead, they carried tools for a very different kind of war. Hacking devices that could break any computer system. Explosives so small they could fit in a coin but powerful enough to destroy a building. Weapons that killed silently and left no trace. Remember the mission parameters, Dongwu said quietly. We're not here to fight the Voidborn army. We're here to remove their ability to function as an army. Sergeant Bora checked her demolition kit. Target priority remains the neural command nodes? Correct. Without their coordination network, the Voidborn become just a bunch of angry bugs. Private Tejo reviewed the intelligence reports on his tablet. The bioships use organic computing systems. I should be able to introduce viruses that will make them attack each other. Good. Remember, no one sees us, no one knows we're here. The Federation thinks their army is winning this battle. Let them think that. The stealth transport moved through space like a ghost. It had no energy signature, no heat output, no electromagnetic emissions. To every sensor in the system, it simply did not exist. While the Federation and Voidborn armies clashed on the planet's surface in massive battles, the human ship slipped past all defenses and landed silently in the enemy rear area. The Voidborn had never encountered enemies like this. They adapted to direct confrontation, learning from every attack. But the humans never attacked them directly. Instead, they infiltrated, sabotaged, and vanished like smoke. Dongwu's team split up the moment they reached the ground. Each person had specific targets and specific methods. They moved through the Voidborn positions like invisible death, striking at the things that held the enemy together. Bora reached the primary communication relay first. The structure looked like a living tree made of metal and flesh, pulsing with organic energy. She placed her charges in exactly the right spots and moved on. When they detonated 20 minutes later, every Voidborn unit on the planet lost contact with their commanders. Tejo found the bioship manufacturing facility. Instead of trying to destroy it with explosives, he introduced a computer virus that changed the production parameters. The facility kept working normally, but now it was building ships that would turn on their own fleet. Meanwhile, Dongwu himself penetrated the central command complex. The Voidborn never saw him coming. Their sensors looked for armies, for energy weapons, for the kind of threats they understood. They never detected 1 human moving through their defenses like a shadow. He found the primary neural network coordinator deep in the complex. It was a massive creature, part machine and part living brain, that controlled the hive mind of all Voidborn forces in the system. Killing it would be like cutting the head off a snake. Dongwu placed a small device next to the creature and activated it. The coordinator died instantly but quietly. No alarms, no explosions, no signs of attack. It simply stopped functioning. Across the planet, the effect was immediate. Voidborn units that had been moving in perfect coordination suddenly became confused and disorganized. They lost their tactical advantages, their adaptive abilities, their unity of purpose. In his command center, General Corthan watched his tactical display in amazement. The red enemy markers were changing to yellow, indicating confused or inactive units. Entire enemy formations were breaking up for no reason he could understand. What's happening? He asked his tactical officer. Unknown, sir. The Voidborn appear to be suffering massive communication failures. Their formations are falling apart. Are we doing this? No, sir. None of our weapons are causing this effect. Corthan contacted the human captain. Young-ho, what are you doing out there? Cleaning up, General. I suggest you advance now while the enemy is disorganized. Advance? But how did you... Details aren't important. The Voidborn can't coordinate their defenses anymore. Your forces should be able to handle scattered resistance. The Federation attack that followed was devastating. Without their hive mind coordination, the Voidborn fought like individual insects instead of a unified army. The Zenthari shock troops and hegemony battle mechs tore through them with ease. Within 6 hours, Kepler 442b was liberated. The Federation celebrated a miraculous victory, their first real success against the Voidborn. But they never saw the humans who made it possible. Dongwu's team was already back on their ship, preparing intelligence reports for their next target. They had identified 7 more Voidborn strongholds that could be neutralized in similar ways. Mission success, Dongwu reported to his superiors. Enemy coordination network destroyed, planet secured, Federation forces intact. Excellent work, came the reply. Proceed to target designation Bravo 7. Understood. What about the Federation? They're asking questions about our methods. Let them ask. They wanted the Voidborn problem solved. How we solve it isn't their concern. As the human ship disappeared into stealth mode again, General Corthan stood among the ruins of the Voidborn command complex. He found no signs of battle damage, no evidence of the attack that had crippled the enemy. It was as if the Voidborn had simply stopped working. His communications officer approached nervously. Sir, the Federation High Command wants a full report on how we achieved victory. Tell them the truth, Corthan replied. The humans helped us. But sir, what exactly did they do? The Zenthari general looked up at the sky where the human ship had vanished. He was beginning to understand that humanity fought wars in ways no other species could imagine. I have no idea, he said quietly, and I think that's exactly how they want it. The alien ship looked like a giant metal flower floating in space above Earth. Its silver petals slowly opened and closed as it waited for permission to land. Inside the ship, Ambassador Thexelon checked his translation device one more time. This was the most important conversation in galactic history. Commander Hyunsik stood at the window of the orbital station, watching the alien vessel. His dark eyes showed no emotion as he adjusted his military uniform. Behind him, several Earth officials whispered nervously about first contact protocols. Hyunsik ignored them. He had read every report about these aliens and their war. The meeting room was simple and clean. White walls, a long table and chairs for both human and alien bodies. When Thexelon entered, his forearms moved in what his people considered a respectful greeting. The alien stood 8 feet tall with blue-gray skin and large black eyes. His voice came through speakers as smooth as silk. Commander Hyunsik of Earth, Thexelon began, I bring greetings from the Galactic Federation. We come to you in our darkest hour. Hyunsik nodded once. Speak. The alien's large eyes seemed to grow larger. For 300 years, the Federation has kept peace among 47 different species. We have built a civilization that spans thousands of worlds. But now we face extinction. A hologram appeared above the table. It showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of bright dots representing inhabited worlds. As Thexelon spoke, many of the dots began turning black. The Voidborn, the alien continued. They appeared 5 years ago from the dark space between galaxies. They consume entire star systems, leaving nothing behind. Their ships adapt to every weapon we use. Their soldiers think as one mind across billions of bodies. They cannot be reasoned with or stopped. The hologram showed images of the enemy. The Voidborn looked like giant insects made of black metal and organic tissue. Their ships were alive, pulsing like giant hearts. Hyunsik watched without any change in expression. We have lost 63 worlds, Thexelon said. Over 2 billion Federation citizens are dead. Our best military leaders say we have perhaps 1 year before complete defeat. What do you want from Earth? Hyunsik asked. Soldiers. Your species has something unique. You wage war differently than any other intelligent race. While we fight with honor and tradition, you fight to win. We need that. The alien touched a control and the hologram changed to show Federation armies. Millions of soldiers in perfect formations marching in straight lines with banners flying. Their battles looked like ancient Earth wars with massive armies clashing on open fields. Every Federation species has contributed their finest warriors. The Zenthari sent their shock troops who have never known defeat. The hegemony provided their battle mechs that can destroy mountains. The Altarians gave us their fleet commanders who have won 1,000 victories. Thexelon paused, his 4 hands clasping together. But the Voidborn adapt to everything. They study our tactics and turn our own strategies against us. What defeats them today fails tomorrow. We need fresh thinking. We need human soldiers. Hyunsik leaned back in his chair. How many do you want? As many as you can provide. We will take millions if you have them. In return, the Federation offers Earth full membership, advanced technology that will advance your civilization by centuries, and territorial rights to 3 entire star systems. The room fell silent. The other Earth officials looked excited by the offer. Hyunsik stared at the hologram showing the Voidborn armies. Finally he spoke. I accept. Thexelon's relief was visible. His large black eyes seemed to brighten. Excellent. When can you begin transporting your armies? We will send our forces within 1 month, Hyunsik replied. But I have conditions. Name them. First, human forces operate under human command only. No Federation officers give orders to our people. Agreed. Second, we choose our own targets and methods. You point us at the enemy, but how we fight is our decision. Thexelon hesitated for a moment. This is unusual. All Federation forces coordinate their actions. Those are my terms. Very well. Agreed. Third, our operations remain classified. No Federation observers. No reports to your military commanders about our methods. But we must coordinate. No. Hyunsik's voice was flat and final. Take it or leave it. The alien looked around the room at the other humans, hoping for support. They all stared back silently. Finally, Thexelon nodded. We agree to your conditions. Desperation makes us flexible. After the aliens left, the other Earth officials crowded around Hyunsik with excitement. Advanced technology! New star systems! Full galactic membership! But the commander was already walking toward the door. Sir, one official called out, what kind of force are you planning to send? Will it be the Marines? The Army? The Space Force? Hyunsik stopped at the door. He turned back with the first smile anyone had seen from him all day. It was not a warm smile. None of those, he said quietly. An hour later, Hyunsik sat in a secure communication room. The screen in front of him showed a man in a black uniform with no visible rank or unit markings. Colonel Jamin had dark eyes and scars on his hands that spoke of dangerous work. Did you hear the meeting? Hyunsik asked. Every word, Jamin replied. The Federation wants an army. But we're not sending them an army, are we? Jamin's smile was even colder than his commander's had been. No, sir. We're sending them something much worse. How long do you need? 2 weeks to select personnel. Another week for briefings and equipment. The ghost units will be ready. Good, make sure they understand the situation. This isn't a peacekeeping mission or a liberation war. This is pest control. Understood, sir. The Voidborn want to exterminate galactic civilization? That's right. Then we'll exterminate them first. The communication ended, leaving Hyunsik alone in the dark room. Through the window, he could see Earth turning slowly beneath the station. Somewhere down there, very special soldiers were about to receive very unusual orders. The Federation wanted an army to fight a war, but humans didn't fight wars the way other species did. They solved problems permanently. The Voidborn had become a problem that threatened human expansion into the galaxy. Soon they would learn what happened to problems that got in humanity's way. The galaxy was about to discover that asking humans for help came with consequences no one had considered. The Federation thought they were hiring soldiers. They had actually hired hunters.